All right, welcome back. In this video, we're now going to move on and start talking about the connection between the subconscious mind and the physical body. Right, and we're actually going to talk about that in the next two chapters too. So, chapters 4, 5, and 6. That's basically what we're going to be going over. And in the next chapter, we'll try to get a bigger picture between the negative mind and the positive mind. So basically, just to start with, so far we've been really talking about the subconscious, and the subconscious from the perspective of how it's controlled by the conscious mind or the negative mind. Basically, intention quantizes the subconscious. It's your intention causes the subconscious to switch to a certain frequency, and then it determines what it's going to do at that frequency. So it basically is the commander of the subconscious. However, that's basically how we've been looking at it so far. But your conscious mind is not the only commander in the equation, right? So there's also another part of yourself that your subconscious has to obey or is commanded by, right? And that's your physical body. So just going over this point here, the body also has the ability to command the subconscious in addition to the conscious mind. So your subconscious actually has two commanders, right? It has two people it has to listen to. It has to listen, it has to listen to the negative mind or the conscious mind, and it has to listen to your physical body. So it obeys commands from both, right? And you might think, well, what if they clash? Sometimes they do. Sometimes the command coming from the conscious mind is different or is against the command coming from the body. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but that is an issue. But yeah, it basically listens to both. So when I was writing the book, right, at the time I wrote chapter 4, I was constantly thinking about where the negative mind properties of consciousness come from and where the positive mind properties of the subconscious come from. Because like I said, when I use the term negative mind and positive mind and conscious and subconscious, they do have slightly different meanings that I haven't gone over yet, which we'll actually go over in the next chapter. So to me, I'm always thinking, well, where do the negative, at least back then, I was constantly thinking, where exactly do the negative mind properties come from and the subconscious mind properties, or the positive mind properties? And I was thinking about it for a while. I actually think now I have the answer since I wrote chapter 4. I haven't put it in the book, but I do think I have the answer now. But I'll just kind of go over some of the stuff I was thinking back then, or some of the principles. These principles I still believe in, but I was just kind of thinking about the connection, the properties of a negative and positive mind when I was thinking about this. But just to say this, so this is just my belief, right? This is all my theory. So my belief is that when we're born, right, I believe that we still have a conscious mind and a subconscious mind and the spirit. Because that's what I used to think about a lot. Because I'm like, well, these properties of the mind, they're intrinsic to our nature, right? The physical body could be born and die, right? So it's not, awareness is not generated by the physical body. I know there are some people that believe that. I just can't, I just think it's absurd, right? There's too much evidence that isn't the case, right? It just doesn't make any sense to me. So for me, the mind survives after death, and it exists before death, before birth, right? And so thinking about it in the spirit realm, I'm like, well, does the mind work in these things? Because I'm always thinking about this stuff, right? I'm always theorizing, right? And I'm like, does the mind still have a consciousness and a subconscious even in the spirit? Like, where does it come from? Or is it something that's created when we're in the body? So I don't know. I used to wonder if the mind was one mind in the spirit, so that it has both negative mind and positive mind properties without some need for a conscious or subconscious, right? It's just one thing. I was wondering if the body splits it in some way into the two, right? I was actually kind of considering that, but now I don't think that's true. I'll go over my new theory in the next chapter, but now I don't think that's true, but that's kind of what I was thinking about here. But still, just to go over it, when God puts your spirit in the physical body or assigns your spirit to a body, I like to think of it as he performs kind of like a special kind of bonding between the spirit and the body, or a sealing effect, right? So he seals your spirit in your body, and they're now connected, right? And when he does that, the body is given a degree of sovereignty, right, over the subconscious. So I believe in the spirit, you do still have a subconscious, all spirits do, and you still have a conscious mind. Now, when you get in the body, when God assigns your spirit to a body, that body is given sovereignty over the conscious mind. So it has the ability to command it in addition to the conscious mind. And that's what I say here. So that's basically, in a nutshell, what I believe is going on, right? So that's where it gets its 2 commands. Now, what ends up also happening is that I think that I don't know exactly how it works, but I believe that, let me just say that when you're born, right, or when you're assigned a physical body, even your 5 senses are actually kind of routed, right, through, I know that's like maybe like some type of telecommunication term, right? But it's like routed through the information from your 5 senses is routed through your subconscious mind. I know that seems a little weird to say, but that'll make more sense when we get to chapter 7 of book 2, right? Because there's more supernatural stuff to talk about that we haven't spoken about yet. But suffice it to say, the information that you get from your 5 senses of the physical world, so what I believe is it goes through the physical body, one of your sensory receptors translates the signal from the external world into information that goes through your nerves into your brain, and then it goes from the brain actually to your subconscious, and then from your subconscious to your conscious mind. So, in other words, your subconscious is also compelling you to sense reality, right? And it does that through your physical body. Now, I know that might seem a little weird now. It's going to make more sense when we talk about some of these stuff in chapter 5, and then especially when we get to chapter 7 of book 2. This is basically a bigger theory I'm working from. And I don't want to say that you can basically prove it based on the stuff that I'm saying, but because what we talk about in chapter 7 of book 2 is basically psychic abilities. You got to be very careful when using those. So I don't know that I want you to prove it, just yet. But that's basically what I'm working from. When you see the bigger picture, I think it'll make more sense. But for now, that's the basic framework, right? So even your sensory capabilities, basically, I'll just say now, your psychic abilities are turned off completely. Your psychic abilities actually represents your spirit's ability to naturally sense everything. That's what it uses when it doesn't have a physical body. When you're born, that sense is completely turned off. And in return, your subconscious relies on your physical body for sensory experience, right? So I just wanted to I don't really see I think it's okay to still say that much right now without being too confusing. We'll talk more about that later. But that's basically the idea, right? That's why your spirit doesn't need the body to sense things, but your spirit senses are turned off. In return, the body has to feed it all the information it gets. So if something's missing from the body, if one of your senses aren't working for whatever reason, then your spirit's just not going to be able to sense anything because the subconscious is not including that information in any compulsion to your awareness, right? So that's basically the framework we're working from, is that everything you're sensing is actually occurring through your subconscious, and we'll talk a little more about it in the next video. So just to go over this last point, which this last point isn't too important, but something I've noticed is that the left hemisphere of your brain, a lot of its properties and the descriptions that are attributed to it, they sound a lot like what I've called the negative mind. And in the right hemisphere of the brain, a lot of the properties attributed to that are what I refer to as the positive mind, right? So, because at first I used to wonder, kind of like I said, is if the body splits a singular mind and spirit into 2. And maybe the negative mind and spirit, the negative mind refers to one part of the split, or the left hemisphere refers to one part of the split, and the right hemisphere is like the other part of that split of a singular mental entity. But I don't longer think that's true. But still, this ends up kind of being the case, because the left hemisphere, I believe, is associated with logic and reasoning and a linear form of thinking. And I forget some of the other properties, but you can look it up. It's in my book, but I don't really feel like looking at it right now. But so those are the properties associated with the left hemisphere is generally what we refer to the negative mind. The right hemisphere, I think, is associated with creativity, emotion, a sort of passion, not like logical way of thinking, right? And I think that's associated with the positive mind, as we discussed. So there seems to be connections between the two. Probably that could be studied more, but yeah, that was just something I thought was interesting to say and mention here. That's pretty much it for this introduction. So I just want to give a general framework of kind of how I think about the subconscious, the connection between the subconscious and the body. So now in the next couple of videos, we're going to talk more deeply about this connection. In this chapter, like I said, this chapter 5 and 6, we're mainly going to be talking about how the body influences the subconscious mind. And then in chapter 7, we're going to go back to talking about the connection between the mind and the body. Because that'll set things up to start talking about how to actually control your subconscious. But to fully learn how to control it, you have to understand everything that the body is doing with your subconscious, right? And then it gives you an idea of what to expect and what your conscious mind needs to do to control it, to kind of work through all the noise that your body is sort of doing when it commands your subconscious mind, right? Because when you're trying to control it with the conscious mind, you're going to have to kind of deal with what your body is trying to tell your subconscious mind to do. So you can't. It's going to be a lot easier to control it when you understand what the body's doing and why it's doing it. Right, so yeah, that's pretty much it. I think I might do another story time in the next video, and that'll help set up some of the other stuff I'll talk about, right? So thanks you for watching, and I'll see you next video.